Welcome to Conversations with Women Who Lead, honest conversations about business, leadership, and what really shapes how women lead. I'm Anne-Marie McHenry, business coach, consultant, creator, and a therapist for the past 2 decades. On this podcast, I sit down with women to talk about their businesses and their unique areas of expertise, as well as how their upbringing, background, and the social conditioning they've experienced have shaped the way they lead. We explore what they've had to learn and unlearn along the way. I'll also be sharing my own journey of founding and selling a business and the very real trials, lessons, and reinvention involved in building my next chapter, Rose and Stone. This is a space for thoughtful leadership, honest conversation, and women redefining success on their own terms. I'm so happy you're here. Thanks for joining us on Conversations with Women Who Lead. Today's episode will be a little bit different. I recently had the honor of being a guest on Dr. Brittany Chidley's podcast called And We Feel, and it was one of those conversations I didn't want to end. Brittany is a clinical psychologist on a mission to help people talk more openly about their feelings, and she asked me to speak about the emotional side of building and running a business. Give her podcast a listen. It's called And We Feel, and the information will be in the show notes. Enjoy.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the And We Feel podcast. I'm Dr. Brittany Chidley, a psychologist and mom of 2, eager to break the stigma around emotional health. Today, we have a gem of a guest, Anne-Marie McHenry, and I am so excited to have you here today, Anne-Marie.
Thank you for having me, Brittany.
Anne-Marie McHenry is a licensed marriage and family therapist, a certified professional coach, certified Gottman Method couples therapist, and founder of Rose and Stone Consulting. She started her first business in 2016, a solo mental health practice in Portland, Oregon, that she grew into a team of 25, including therapists, social workers, nurse practitioners, and an acupuncturist. In 2025, she sold that practice to a Fortune 500 company. Today, Anne-Marie coaches founders, entrepreneurs, and high performers on the business side of personal demands that come with building something from scratch. Her approach sits at the intersection of clinical expertise and business strategy, built on the belief that understanding people is just as important as understanding business. She also hosts Conversation with Women Who Lead, a podcast about the lived experience of women in leadership, their stories, their expertise, and the lessons they've learned along the way. Welcome, Anne-Marie, and what a bio you have.
Thank you. It's been many years in the making, that's for sure.
So I am thrilled to have you today to talk a little bit different about what you talk about on your podcast. I've listened to a few of those articles, and you reference some poignant tips on business strategy, development, entrepreneurship for women, and really, really helpful tips. However, something that we talk so much about business are the emotions that come with growing and developing and creating a business. So I'm curious, just in terms of us going to grad school together and studying therapy, how many classes do we have in business development?
Oh my gosh, I don't think we had any, did we?
So how did you go from starting a business to where you are now?
Yeah, great question, and thank you. And this is such a full circle moment since we did go to graduate school together in California. We started in 2006, graduated 2008, and have since developed in our careers so much. You went on to get your doctorate, and I did all kinds of other things. And now here we are, and it's really amazing to be here with you. I worked in the field for many years until I started my solo private practice in 2016. And I think I don't want to speak for every therapist, but that's kind of the dream, right? You start your own business, you get to work with the clients that you know that you're specialized in working with. I think we have big expectations of making really good money and being very full. And that really isn't the case, I don't think, for at least a few years. As you're starting out, you're really starting from ground zero with no clients, no marketing. I didn't really have any business sense. As you mentioned in school, I don't remember if we learned anything about how to start a private practice. I don't think we did, right? And I did not have any real specialized college courses or any education in finances, accounting, starting a business, running a business. profit and loss, balance sheets, all that stuff. I just wanted to start a private practice. So I did. Learned in the beginning that I needed a team of professionals who knew what they were doing because I did not. And thankfully, I come from a privileged place where my father was an attorney and he said, "You need an attorney if you're starting a business." And so he introduced me to one of his buddies who helped me file my LLC. And then that person just worked with me. He didn't charge me any money for a while. He just wanted to help his friend's daughter get started. So he said, "You need an accountant and you need to correctly file your business. So you need an attorney's oversight here and then go do the work." So those two professionals I have always kept front and center in terms of starting a business. Knowing someone can help me do something correctly legally. And then financially, accounting wise, starting a business and a healthcare practice requires a certain type of accountant who understands what it is to have an LLC in the state that you're established in, and then understanding how your revenue comes in, what your expenses are,
Right.
and not that they're looking at PHI protected information, but just understanding, there are certain parameters around a healthcare business, which was my solo private practice that they needed to be aware of. So that's been foundational for me is like knowing that I've needed some support starting out because I don't have all the answers and I did not know what I was doing other than seeing the clients. I knew how to work with clients, but the rest of it, I had a little bit of support to start, but then moving forward, I mean, in a private practice, you don't know what to expect. There's seasons of busyness and then things slow down, just depending on how the economy is doing, depending on what city you live in, depending on what's going on in the world. People's desire for therapy or need for therapy, it really fluctuates.
Mhm.
So it took me 2 or 3 years to really build a full business, and I was also working part-time as a yoga instructor for several years in the beginning, teaching a whole bunch of classes every week, just trying to make ends meet. So no, like, as a yoga teacher and therapist, I had no idea what I was doing in business.
Imagine.
To say that again?
Very good with feelings, I imagine.
Yes, right? I was so into working with people and just helping people with their experiences and to process them and to be available to support them through their moments of understanding historical trauma and breathing through it and doing some of the just deeper work of holding that space and helping people understand that they are not broken, that they are worthy, that we can choose how we want to show up in the world and be the person that we want to be and show up in relationships in a way that's helpful for us and our partners and heal through those relationships and connections. I love that. That is my work, that is my skill set. Business, not so much, but I just had to start learning as I went. And another point of privilege that really helped me is that as I was growing in my business, I met my partner, now husband, who had a lot of experience in business. And he would start asking me questions about, so how many sessions per week was I seeing? How many was I seeing on average per month? What was my average reimbursement rate from insurance companies and cash pay clients? What were my expenses per month? What was my profit? What are my profit margins? And I have no idea what you're talking about. I am just helping people. I am teaching some yoga classes, I'm teaching meditation, I'm facilitating groups. I'm just helping people. And, it's really nice to meet you and date you, but I don't know. What do you think? And it
Right.
was in hindsight, I have compassion for that version of me who is very naive and very uneducated and very, I don't want to say embarrassing because I only knew what I knew at the time, but he was asking me really important questions. And I just, really hope for the best and kind of was happy that I found a partner who maybe could help me figure it out, even though I was very clear from the own work that I had done personally. I am not going to rely on a man. I am not going to be rescued. This is not my Prince Charming. All that socialization that I'd experienced and all the Disney movies I'd watched when I was younger. But I was also still very grateful that I was dating someone who was so smart at business. And so he started looking at my Excel spreadsheets with me and I had one spreadsheet that was 2 columns of income and expenses, and I was, like, tracking every line item of, like, buying Kleenex for the office, and this was all on a spreadsheet that I would give to my accountant and was a start, but he actually helped me start tracking weekly, monthly reimbursement rates. Um, I had a biller at the time because that was another person I knew I needed on my team because billing insurance is a
Mhm.
beast, right?
Mhm.
I was trained to be a therapist, not a biller. And I learned early on that I would spend hours trying to figure out billing when I could have been seeing clients in that time. And so the way I was thinking about it was I am using so much of my time to figure out billing that I could be earning income. The billing insurance was very complicated. So I hired a biller, but I also didn't really understand how that worked in the back end of my EHR, my health record system. So I started to learn what all the batch reports were and to be able to track when claims were submitted and then when the reimbursements came in. And I wasn't doing any of that until I started talking to my partner. He was like, "Do you even know if you're getting paid for these sessions? I mean, money's going into the bank account." I would look at my bank account every day and see
Uh-huh.
money coming in. And I think a lot of business owners do that, right? They're always looking at their bank account. But to actually understand what money was being reimbursed, what claims were getting stuck, and what I needed to actually follow up with my biller about, because that person was human too. That company was an organization of humans. Some things they would catch and some things they wouldn't. So I just learned I needed to be much more diligent about tracking the revenue. So these were things I was not doing in the beginning. And then as I got busier, and I think my very first extremely full year, I was seeing, 25 to 30 clients a week. My income was $60,000. I mean, that's a lot of clients per week. My reimbursement rates weren't great at that time with a couple of the insurance carriers that I was working with. But I was just like, how am I working so hard and helping so many people? And that's my income. And that was before taxes.
And not
So,
even
and
including
expenses.
right, and emails and phone calls and
Oh,
notes.
yes. Yes. All the additional time that goes into taking care of a client and ensuring that you're showing up professionally and doing your part, a
Mhm.
lot of that happens outside of the 55-minute hour.
Sure.
Yes. So all this was kind of like brewing together. I started my business, started to grow it, met my partner. He was like, give me all these questions that were legitimate. How do you run a business questions? And then I got so busy, and my take home was so sad to me after all of the time that I had put in. And I think part of growing a business and like the emotional stuff that comes up is it requires having a really solid support system around you that understands what you're doing and can see your vision and your talent and your grit and what you're trying to accomplish.
Mhm.
And they say, you can do this. Let's just take a closer look. Let's reevaluate and let's make this work for you. And so in that moment, that was what my partner did for me, because he was like, no, you've got a really solid thing here. You just can't keep doing this the way you've been doing it, because I had run myself into the ground and I was
Right.
exhausted and I was crying and all the things.
And you let them, right? Like you allowed the assistance, you allowed the co-pilot.
Yes.
Mm,
Yes.
talk to me about the mixed bag of feelings of feeling sad and tired, but yet also the passion of running a business and the deep desire for you to help other people. Talk to me about that.
Yes. There's so much conflict and internal struggle there because, you know, I I feel like I came out of the womb and then my environment reinforced and affirmed that you were meant to be a helper in this way. I love talking to people. I love understanding them. I love supporting them through difficult times. I was supposed to do this work. And so that has always felt very, very true and very authentic for me, is to be in the field of mental health and the business of helping others. Um, that's 100% a passion of mine. And I also was really excited about having my own business and not being, I worked in hospital settings, I worked in corporate, I worked in nonprofit. I learned so much from all those experiences. And I also learned what I didn't want to do. And I also wanted to just do my own thing. Like, I wanted to see if I could do that because that was the dream. So that was still a desire of mine. And I was not ready to just quit and then go work for a hospital again, which is a really, noble pursuit as well. I just like really wanted to do my thing. And it's funny, like I like the flexibility of running my own business, but you're running your own business also kind of requires something of you every day of the week for
Mhm.
many hours a day. So it's not like a 9 to 5 job or like a hospital job. Like you do your notes and you're done. You go home, right? And then you go back the next day. Like your own business keeps you very busy all of the time. Uh, But I really enjoyed that. So there was joy and passion and a desire to keep supporting all of these clients that I had. I also didn't want to stop seeing them and then go start another job and have to figure out, transitioning out of a place of work as a therapist takes time, at least 30 days, if not longer, to make
Sure.
sure that everyone's accounted for and going to be okay. So there was all of that good stuff, but it was also very stressful and very demanding. And I was very tired and I was very emotionally depleted from not only just being a human in the world and trying to be in a relationship and pay my bills, but also there is a certain level of emotional, you'll have to help me remember this word. It's a caregiver, not caregiver burnout, but when you compassion fatigue. Yes. When you just like you've given so much and held so much space and supported so many people, not even on a weekly basis, a daily basis, one single human doing that gets a little tired.
Course.
So all of those emotions were there, but I think the one that I had to pay a lot of attention to was how my physical body was handling the emotional exhaustion. And I
Mhm.
felt very, very heavy in my body. I would lay down to go to sleep and I felt like I weighed 10 tons. I just would sink into the bed. And it was just an exhaustion that is hard to describe unless I think you've been there. I feel like a lot of people have, especially as parents who have many, many responsibilities on top of business and
Mhm.
work. But all of that happening at the same time, I don't think the stuff that was hard enough for me to say, or depleting enough for me to say, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. There was still enough. I believe I can. I want to. I love this work. And I just need to find a different way to do it that feels more sustainable. I think there was enough of that there that I didn't throw in the towel.
And your talent at holding so much at once, right? The fatigue or almost
Mhm.
sounds like depletion on top of burnout,
Yeah.
just so thick. And also a passion and a desire or a yearning and an excitement for something different. But your talent at holding all of that, I would love for entrepreneurs and attorneys and healthcare providers to hear that.
Mhm.
I work a lot with entrepreneurs, and it
Mhm.
almost seems like when we get that burnout or fatigue or frustration and the barriers that we hit, then it's
Mhm.
almost like we throw in the towel or we just react to it,
Mhm.
where you're setting a great example of containing it, using it as important information.
Yeah. Yeah. I know I watched one of your reels. It was part of a podcast where you talked about burnout is inevitable. And
Mm,
I completely agree with that. Like, if you're going all in every aspect of your life as much as you can, you're going to overdo it and it's going to cause you to you're just living in fight or flight, right? Eventually something's going to give and then we crash and that's the burnout. Um we have to find a more sustainable way to be doing all the things that we love. That is just very clear to me at this point. But I'm going to give a shout out to my husband, who was the one that I married, my partner who got me thinking in different ways about my business because he's a physical therapist and he's working with the physical body adaptation to different stressors. And he used to say to me, stress creates adaptation. And I used to be like, that's so ridiculous. Let's lift heavier weights and get stronger. And the heavier you lift, the stronger you get, you can handle more. But he's not wrong. Stress in the mental health or in like our ability to sustain higher and higher loads of work or increase our capacity, that stress does create adaptation. It requires us to adapt to like our next higher level of experience and being. And
mhm,
I don't want to say I recommend putting yourself under immense amounts of stress all the time so that you adapt and then get stronger and more capable. I don't think that's a good idea. But I do think there's an element of truth and wisdom to that that's really important because the more that you start to handle, and let's say you handle more with grace, with ease, with rest, with support, the better able you will be to tolerate that level of stress. And then you'll be able to take on a little bit more, hopefully with the same, expectation or like delivery of support and rest and ease and grace and compassion. So I do think that there's this element because to me, I think sure there's talent in all of this, but I think there's also capacity. You might be really good at a thing and that comes innately to you, but the more that you practice it, the better you get. And the more that you practice it and do more of this and more of that, you amplify and grow your capacity to handle more.
mhm.
And I'm curious if you've had that experience, especially as being a mom of two, you might, I'm guess like you might not have thought you could handle all the things that you're handling now, but you are. If you
Mm.
look back 20 years ago, I don't know, did you think you could handle all of this that you're doing now?
Yeah, I'll circle back to that in terms of a different role in parenting, though your husband's reference that stress
Creates adaptation.
I was gonna say foster creates adaptations. I mean, that's what he does, right? Whether it's
Mhm.
preventive, let me prevent an injury and we will stretch
Mhm.
and stress your body in a healthful way,
Mhm.
or whether it's an interventive, right? Like you've stressed your body too much. It's just
Yeah,
a positive adaptation.
right.
At times, those adaptations that are what bring us into therapy, how we adapted
Yeah.
is not
Yep.
healthy, are still healthfully adapting now.
Yes. I
And
love that distinction because stress can create adaptation in a way that is really maladaptive or hurtful or harmful to us. And
right.
so, yeah, I love that you're bringing up that distinction. It's really, really important. Thank you for saying that. I think that's part of why I was like, no, I don't think so. When my husband first said that, there's, I guess there's two sides to every coin. There's a light side and a dark side. And so, yes, it's both. It's both and.
Yes. And the stretching yourself, it is a big fear. I think for many parents after having a child, wondering like, how can I caretake? How can I love a second one the same? Or how can my heart grow? And that stress of managing, right, another infant, or you will, like you do. But
Hmm.
it's very hard to imagine that
Hmm.
foresight till you're in
Hmm.
it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll add to that a little bit, sort of a side tangent. I've also heard, and this was from a male perspective, looking at a female business owner, mom, spouse, partner. This female business owner that the story was shared with me. She just got to a point where she was like, I can't do any of this anymore. And so this man was sharing with me she just needed to keep going. She just needed to keep trying harder. She just needed to like pick herself up by her bootstraps and go. And I was like, no, she made the choice that was right for her. This is not a question of is she capable or not. This is a question of her being stressed beyond her capacity and not having the support to be able to continue moving forward in the way that she was. And so I share that because I think there's also a little bit of gendery stuff around I think boys and men historically have been socialized to just go, 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 push harder, push harder. And I think girls and women are a little more open to let's talk about what's actually going on and feel it and support one another. And so that perspective that I got from this individual was like she just needed to try harder and keep going. I don't think so.
Mm.
I think we need to find how do we support ourselves amidst intense stress and exhaustion and burnout? And if we don't have that support, it's virtually impossible to keep going. We have to hard stop it. It's
Right.
not a matter of being capable enough. It's that we're beyond our capacity.
Absolutely. And that's at the detriment to both, right? Gender roles, whatever those stereotypes are,
Mhm.
that for both, I guess my bias of my mission is to know how you are emotionally and to use that. If you
Mhm.
have the energy and the drive to keep going, keep going. And
Mhm.
if you need to stop and repair and regroup, stop, rebuild.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
We don't get there without knowing part of your 4 pillars, right? Of your last one, knowing.
Mhm. Yes. Yes, and feeling, right? The ironic thing is that if we just stop and give a moment to the person who's under so much stress to just hear about how they're doing, what are they feeling, what's actually going on, hold that for them,
Mhm.
that usually is the medicine for them to say, "Okay, like breathe a sigh of relief and say, okay, now I think I can move forward, or now I know what my next step is." It's
Mhm.
when we don't give someone that space and that support to just feel what's actually going on. Because when someone's just telling you, keep going, keep going, keep going, you can do this, figure it out, whatever it is, that diminishes the whole human experience,
Mhm.
right? Our whole human experience is about feeling.
Right.
That's your whole mission, Brittany, is we have to feel. And that is our medicine, is feeling what's going on. So then we can, make a clearer decision.
It is definitely my whole mission, and knowing that there are so many feelings starting a business, running a business, supervising employees. And I'm also curious on the other side for you, Anne Marie, what it's like to essentially birth something, grow something, take care of it, and then sell it. How is that emotionally?
I mean, the whole gamut, the whole roller coaster. I love every iota, every small detail, every bit of the business that I created, and that came from my team. Um, I started a thing, and when I decided the way that it would be, my business would become more sustainable for me would be to hire a couple of like-minded clinicians who could do similar work or an extension of my work so that I didn't have to see as many clients. That was my goal was, okay, how can we serve more clients? I can't physically see them. I don't have enough hours in the week. But what if I hire a person or two to be able to do this good work, keep it all in-house, maybe make a little bit more money, give some other people a job. That sounds cool. Let's do that. The whole thing was a journey, a huge process, a huge learning curve, very steep learning curve at times. But I grew so much through the process and I'm so grateful for it. And I don't want to say I loved every minute of it or every single thing that happened, but I'm very grateful for it. And as my team grew, they made the business more expansive and more beautiful and more trauma informed and more inclusive and more impactful than I could have ever made this business by myself. It
Mhm.
truly grew into something that I set the foundation for it and it bloomed, and it was incredible to watch that happen. That it was not without a lot of struggle and a lot of strife and a lot of having to learn a lot about myself and how to be a leader and how to understand the finances of the company and how to talk about pay with my employees because everyone wants to make more money as they should. All of it was really hard, but also amazing. And I just kept coming back to I think a team is so much greater and stronger and robust and has more ability to impact positively the lives of so many more people than just one person, than just me. And as I figured out how to hire and grow this business into what it was, which was amazing, it was because of my team. And so then getting to the place of it got to be too big for me to manage by myself. I had a really amazing leadership team, but when I say too big for me to manage myself, I was the only owner and carrying all the legal and financial risk of a company seeing hundreds and hundreds of visits every week, making there was so much money in and out of the business every month through revenue and then payroll and all of our expenses. It was just looking back really unbelievable that just me was in charge of it. Like nobody should have put me in charge. I didn't know what I was doing.
You're so
I right? So I got to the point where I was like I can't do this anymore. I really was at that point where I could not do this by myself. And so having to think about, do I turn this into an employee-owned business? What would that require of me and my team? What would the investment of my team members be if they wanted to buy into ownership of the business and take responsibility for legal and financial liability? What would that look like? What would it look like to take on investors and give away part of my ownership? What would it look like to actually sell the business? I started very slowly and very reluctantly to think about what do I do? Because if it's not one of those decisions, it's I shut down the business and there's no more. I just didn't, I was very reluctant to think about these other options. I just knew that I needed to find another option because, honestly, legally, as a therapist, I think everyone's worst nightmare is something happens to one of our clients and, one, something terrible happens, but also we get sued. And
Mhm.
then if any of those things happen and we're seeing hundreds of visits a week in my practice, I don't actually know what's going on in every
Mhm.
session. There's no way. I trust my team. I trust my leadership team, our supervisors. But if something really, really bad happens, or if what happened with Change Healthcare in 2024 happens, where they were the insurance third party, the conduit of claims, if that shuts down, which it did for 8 weeks in 2024, we didn't get paid. We didn't get paid. That's like
Mhm.
hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars that we just weren't receiving, even though we were seeing clients every week and I was paying my team. If something like that happened again, all of that would fall on me. And so I had to start thinking about I would be responsible for all of that and making sure everyone got paid because I'm going to do the right thing. And if I go into debt because like personal debt because of a system being broken that's out of my control, that's not good. So yeah, I had to consider what are my options. And the best option after a lot of deliberation, a lot of conversations and due diligence was actually selling my business, getting acquired, and then moving into being an employee of another organization. That's what we all did. That was probably the most heartbreaking, heart-wrenching, most difficult. I can't even tell you how many tears I cried, how many panic attacks I had. how stressful it was, how upset I was, how upset my team was, how
Wait,
scared everyone was.
just to make sure I'm understanding and
Mhm,
everybody else too, that you sign the documents, the contract
mhm,
to sell, and they are
mhm.
acquiring you. And
Yeah,
part of the contract then says you are not the owner, you are now an employee
mhm,
of the
yep,
buyers for a certain period of time. So you're working for them now.
mhm. Yep,
Part of the con.
exactly.
Okay.
Yep, and I was really excited, actually. I was so excited to have a boss and to have a leadership team. So that I didn't wanna be in charge anymore, you know? I cannot wait to have someone to talk to because part of my mission with my new work is to support leaders and people who are at the top of an organization because when you own a business, when you are the person that everyone is looking up to and everyone is reporting to, you don't have anyone that you report to or that you can turn to say, "Am I doing this right? Am I okay? Did I screw that up? What do I do now?" It stops at you. And that's where I was. And that was part of, oh my gosh, I'm responsible for all this stuff. Something goes sideways. I have to
Mhm.
fix it. I like to catastrophize like the best of us. So I was really excited to have a manager and a leadership team. And I was really excited about the potential professional development that I would get being in a corporate organization and not being the one making all the decisions and being responsible for the outcome of the business.
Sure.
What I learned is that I like being responsible for the outcome of the business, making the decisions and supporting people through their work in the ways that I know how to. That became very clear to me, several months, if not sooner in. So the transition was just very different being in a corporate organization with a lot of structure and a lot of people to talk to get an answer versus in my little business, the structure, I created the structure. I knew how everything worked. Pretty much everyone else did too, because we had a really solid onboarding. We had really solid standards of operating procedures. My leadership team was incredible. We all knew what to do. And if for some reason 8 steps in, we still didn't, anyone could come to me. I'd be like, I don't know. Well, let's figure it out. What do you think? And then let's do this. In corporate, things just move much more slowly. And that was a really, really hard adjustment. And I also couldn't help. I felt pretty powerless. I didn't have the answers anymore. And I was learning with my team as we went. And I was just as clueless in many ways as my team was. And so that was a really, really wild shift to go through. So I was
Mhm.
really looking forward to it. And there was a lot of good that came of selling, but there was a lot of just complete 180 changes in the way that we operated. And I think that was a difficult awakening to experience.
Yeah, I imagine so many highs, so many lows, so many in between.
Mhm.
So
Yes.
I guess and my final questions for you would be coping. And I know
Mhm.
we all have different things that work for us, and what might work for me might not work the same for you. But how, I guess, in terms of how would you advise entrepreneurs and those riding such highs and such lows with coping strategies? How did you get through it? What advice do you have for others to manage such big feelings?
I think this is such an important question. And of course, you're right. It's different for everybody. I think taking care of our basic needs is number one. Get as much rest as you can, nourish your body, move your body, hydrate your body. I think those basic elements are huge and go a very long way. And we're not going to get any of them perfect, but I think we just do our best. Having a support system that understands your work, I think is really critical because I know we all have friends, right? I love my friends. The ones who do not run businesses did not understand why I was responding to emails at 9 o'clock at night, why I was starting my day at 5 o'clock in the morning to finish whatever I didn't get to the day before, handle what came up in the middle of the night. Because when we work with humans, we have people on our team who are night owls and they send you emails at midnight and then you wake up to them in the morning, right? So I have an amazing support network of friends, but I will say what was critical for me was finding people who also were running a business and really understood the stressors of managing a team, making sure the business stays financially viable and sustainable, and then all the other little stuff that comes up that you would just never expect to happen in a business, but just the most random things will come up. And it's like, oh my God, like who's going to understand this? Only another business owner. So I think that type of support was really critical for me. When I had all of those pieces in place, basic needs, a regular old support system, and then I had a business coach, and then a group of women who really understood running a business. They weren't in the mental health industry, but they were in different businesses. We all have the same issues. And that was pretty cool to see and very affirming and validating. When I had all of that dialed in and working for me, and I was still feeling very, very anxious, very, very stressed, I was observing that I would just spin on decisions that I needed to make, especially if they involved a team member, maybe not fulfilling their end of their job expectations or what needed to get done. And I'd be like, but I don't want to hurt their feelings, or I know they have this going on or this. But to stay in compliance legally and ethically, they needed to do the thing yesterday. And I was just so afraid to talk to them. I have so many experiences and examples of that type of thing. I realized that my anxiety was very much in the way of me making decisions in my business that I needed to make to move it forward and keep things on track.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah. Also, have a therapist. So, have a therapist, have a business coach, support system, all the things.
She's the
I was
therapist,
doing,
Henry.
right. For me, I decided I needed to explore going on a medication to manage my anxiety. And I started taking an SSRI. Um, and it helped me so much. I was able to kind of cut through the fog of just all of the mental drama, which I could see happening. I just couldn't control it.
Mhm.
And I was taking an SSRI, and I swear that was such a game changer for me to help me with my anxiety so that I could keep moving forward and actually make a decision and not get so spun out about it. So, what I have shared with my clients and with friends is that you can do all of the right things. We know how to take care of ourselves. And when
Mhm.
you've maxed all of that out and you're still feeling a certain way that's kind of debilitating, there's always this other option available to you. And I am not a big medication pusher, but for me, I just mention that because I feel like I
Mhm.
needed permission to try medication.
Mhm.
And it really did help me a lot. And I've since actually come off of it because it was very much a circumstantial stressor for me that was running my business. And now that I sold last year, it's been a little over a year now. I wanted to see how I would do without the medication because that was a very identifiable thing that was happening and why I wanted to try taking medication. And so then I came off. And, that's the other part of the conversation is you don't have to take the medication forever. But I
Mhm.
just want to say that because I just feel like medication is still stigmatized.
Mhm.
I don't want to participate in that. I think it's an absolutely wonderful option to explore, especially if you have tried everything else.
I am so grateful that you bring that up and share that with us. Everything you have shared, you are living what you are preaching with your podcast and knowing if we can't handle it in that moment, we have resources. We
Hmm.
can use our support network. We can pull our team together and to do what we preach and to have
Hmm.
those values align, many ways decreases our anxiety, right? Like it's incongruence. And having anxiety in and of itself isn't a problem. It's when it
Hmm.
interferes
Yes.
and knowing that we can take care of that. But I love that you share that with us and know that there are resources and to know that you know when it's helpful and when it's not.
Hmm. Yeah. And I appreciate that you just said having anxiety unto itself is not a bad thing. That's a very normal part of being human. It helps us observe what's important to us and where we want to show up. It's a great thing. But when it interferes with your ability to function and make decisions and kind of live in ways, we need another option. And we do, we have resources available to us. Um,
That's so hard sometimes when, especially with entrepreneurship, when the anxiety drives, and anxiety and excitement are like the same
mhm.
physiologically,
Yes.
but when it
Mhm.
drives so much, and we come from productivity generation, right? Being millennials,
Yes. Yeah.
producing and having to earn that rest, that's just part of our generation.
Mhm.
And also knowing the difference between I'm anxious because I care, anxiety makes sense versus anxiety is now hindering my functioning.
Mhm. Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
separate that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and running a business, it is anxiety producing. I don't know anyone who's not had a lot of anxiety about what's going to happen next. What do I do now? How do I handle this? Going through the mental hamster wheel of all the worst case scenarios.
Mhm.
I know that we default to like the negative. That's just how our brains are wired. We're trying to protect ourselves. We could retrain ourselves to default to like, what are all the amazing things that could happen? And that's fun too. But
Mhm.
just as humans, it's really easy for that anxiety to be there and then to kind of take us to the dark side. There's our own cognitive, like mental and emotional work around managing the anxiety for sure. But sometimes, at least in my case, it wasn't enough. I needed a little extra to take me to the next level up of functioning because I was really getting underground in some ways.
Yeah, so much excitement and probably grief and helplessness and desire. So many
Hmm.
feelings to
All
con-
of it.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Well, it's such a treat to have you on and to share your amazing experience. And now, as we wrap up, let everyone know what you're working on now, your new business.
Oh, I love that question. So, the new business, Rose and Stone Consulting, is really geared towards working with business owners, with leaders, entrepreneurs. And my goal right now, so I should mention, I also got a certification in coaching. So, I had this background in mental health as a therapist for many, many years. And I wanted to focus my business initially on offering therapy for leaders and entrepreneurs, and that's still very much a part of this business. But I got really interested in coaching and I took a certification course, and it was incredible. The skills that this coaching course taught, it was probably one of the best trainings I'd taken in 10 years. It was amazing. It was like, I know, right? It was like a completely different way of orienting to a person and what they want to work toward. You know, it's very much future focused. Coaching is very open ended and supporting and holding space for a person where they're at now and to ask the questions that support them in getting where they want to go. So there's not a lot of going back into your history and holding space for the trauma and connecting dots in that way. It's very much what's happening now and where do we want to go. And I don't know, it was just like a whole different skill set that I was like, this is very, very, very cool. I'm super into this. So I'm now starting to apply that to business owners, leaders, entrepreneurs, because the business side of things is so fascinating to me. And I learned so much through my business coach. Her name is Chris Plackey. I always want to give her credit for everything in my business. She taught me so much and I did everything she said. And I doubled my revenue every year that I worked with her and then ultimately sold my business and she supported me through all of that. So this business coaching aspect of things is super fascinating to me. Now she works with people who are I don't even think she's working with people still building their business. She's working with people who are at the top or they're done and they're onto their next purpose in life. But
Mhm.
I really feel called to work with people who are in the foundational phases of their business and maybe they've gotten their business off the ground, but it's a little bit stuck in some ways and they can't figure out why they're not generating more client or customer interest or generating more revenue, or they want to add another sector of their business. Oh, that's really fascinating to me. So that's what's next. I'm offering the therapy side of things, but I'm also really putting a lot of effort into the coaching side of things. I have my podcast that's out and it's a little mix of mental health and really understanding where we came from because who we are really does translate into the business that we create. Our business has become an extension of us. So, really knowing ourselves, I think, is so important in understanding how you're running your business, what you've created, and then how you want to lead
Mhm.
intentionally. And then the infrastructure and just the building blocks of business this, I guess, becomes another passion of mine because I didn't know what I was doing, right? And so for all the business owners out there who don't know what they're doing either, I really want to help support that and to offer, I know there's a lot of business coaches out there, but I know we all have something different to bring to the table. So I just want to offer what I can in the ways that I do to support other business owners and making their business exactly what they want it to be, and to have the support of a coach who also gets the mental health side of things. So, like the support of a coach right next to them through the process. And then the last piece of what I'm working on right now is an online course. I'm actually going to be publishing it on Friday, which is 2 days from today. It's about the four pillars, which came from my brain. I was thinking and talking about how do we work through supporting a business and a business owner? Well, here are the four things that have really stood out to me and that everything I think about in building this new business and when I've talked with other people about their businesses come back to these four pillars. So I built a course and it's going to
Mhm.
be out on Friday and I'm super excited.
Oh, congratulations. That's so
Thank
impressive.
you. Thank you. We'll see
Where
how it does, but it feels good to put all this in one place.
Oh, I bet. And where can everyone find you?
Oh, thank you. Um, my website is www.roseandstonellc.com. And I'm on social media at Rose and Stone LLC. And then the podcast is available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. And it's called Conversations with Women Who Lead.
Well, thank you so much for sharing with us, Anne Marie, and congratulations on all your successes.
Thank you, Brittany. I appreciate it. And I just, again, love this full circle moment with you. I know that we have had so much life happen in the last 20 years, and I can't wait to talk with you more about your experiences and all that you've created because you've done some amazing things too.
We're happy to.